What is inflation? Inflation measures how much more expensive a set of goods and services has become over a certain period, usually a year. Inflation can be seen as the overall increase in prices or the increase in the cost of living in a country. Inflation is also a measure of purchasing power. Let's imagine John. Today he buys a basket of products that cost $100. In a year, the same amount of products cost John more. Now it costs $106. The inflation in a year was 6%. As inflation rises, consumer spending declines because when prices go up, people can't afford to buy as much. There are three main causes of inflation: demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and built in inflation. The first one, demand pull inflation, refers to situations where there are not enough products or services being produced to keep up with demand, causing their prices to increase. Cost push inflation, on the other hand, occurs when the cost of producing products and services rises, forcing businesses to raise their prices. And built-in inflation, which is sometimes referred to as a wage price spiral, occurs when workers demand higher wages to keep up with rising living costs. This in turn causes businesses to raise their prices in order to offset their rising wage costs, leading to a self-reinforcing loop of wage and price increases. Too much inflation is generally considered bad for an economy, while too little inflation is also considered harmful. Many economists advocate for a middle ground of low to moderate inflation of around 2% per year. Generally speaking, higher inflation harms savers because it erodes the purchasing power of the money they have saved. However, it can benefit borrowers because the inflation-adjusted value of their outstanding debts shrinks over time. There are four main types of inflation, categorized by their speed. The first one, the creeping inflation, is when the price rise is 3% or lower and is scheduled to rise in all coming years. This type of inflation is beneficial for the economy as it promotes demand among consumers. According to the Federal Reserve, the price rise of 2% or less benefits the economy. The consumers are prepared for the price rise and hence buy the product now to beat future higher prices. Walking inflation. This inflation is between 3 to 10% a year. This is harmful to the economy as it heats up the cycle. People are willing to buy more and more to beat future high prices, which affect supply as well. Suppliers can keep up with the supply drive among people. Then galloping inflation. This inflation rises to 10% or more and is absolute havoc to the economy. Money loses its value very fast and businesses can't keep up with costs and prices. Investors avoid the country, the government loses its credibility, and the economy becomes unstable. This inflation should be avoided at any cost. Hyperinflation. It is when prices skyrocket more than 50% a month, and this situation is infrequent. This usually happens when the government prints money to pay for wars. So, who profits from inflation? Some companies reap the rewards of inflation if they can charge more for their products as a result of a surge in demand for their goods. For instance, if the economy is performing well and housing demand is high, home building companies can charge higher prices for selling homes. However, companies can also be hurt by inflation if that is the result of a surge in production cost. Companies are at risk if they are unable to pass on the higher cost to consumers through higher prices. So, how is inflation controlled? One way the government can control inflation is through price controls, which are usually implemented as a means of direct economic intervention to manage the affordability of certain goods and services, including rent, gasoline, and food. Today, contractionary monetary policy is a more popular method of controlling inflation. This is a monetary measure referring either to a reduction in government spending, particularly deficit spending, or a reduction in the rate of monetary expansion by a central bank. The goal of a contractionary policy is to reduce the money supply within an economy by increasing interest rates. Another way to control inflation is through open market operations, OMOs. This refers to the buying and selling of treasury securities. OMOs are a tool with which the Federal Reserve increases, by buying treasuries, or decreases, by selling treasuries, the money supply and adjusts interest rates. Buying securities promotes liquidity in financial markets and puts downward pressure on interest rates, while selling securities does the opposite. One commonly used method to reduce inflation and keep it low is for a country to peg the value of its currency to that of a large, low-inflation country. In some cases, this strategy involves pegging the exchange rate at a fixed value to that of the other country so that its inflation rate will eventually gravitate to that of the other country. The most common practice is to fix the value of the currency to the US dollar. Here is a list of the major fixed currencies that are pegged to this currency. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.
Created using Powtoon.